Hey, YouTube, it's me, John Avenger, once again. Long time no see. Yeah, I took a little break. I needed a break because last week was so painful. It was so boring and long and, stressful, but I'm back. We're almost near the end of September, so I wanted to do a few more reviews before the month is over. I will be doing another live commentary sometime this week. This time we're going back to where we started with from a few days ago, movies with animals in them. This one is not a kids movie. Trust me on this one. This is a 1984 American epic science fiction film written and directed by David Lynch. Yeah, so you pretty much know what this is. Based on a 1965 Frank Herbert novel of the same name. The film stars Con McLaughlin in his film debut, which he did a good job with what was given to him, as a young nobleman named Paul Atreides. Yeah, I don't really know how to say the last name. And it includes an ensemble of well-known American and European actors in the supporting roles and some non-actors, but we'll get to that. It was filmed at the Churubusco Studios in Mexico City, I can tell, including a soundtrack by the rock band Toto, as well as Brian Eno. And that is the original live movie adaptation of Dune. Yes, the 1984 version, not the one that's coming out that's going to be superior from 2021 that's getting really good reviews already, and it already made over $37 million internationally. That I'm hoping for it to be a huge success because Denis Villeneuve definitely deserves it. Now, this is the one that flopped in 1984 because it was too ahead of its time. I don't hate this movie, but I don't love it either. I'm pretty mixed on it. I think it's hard. It's in the right direction, but it is way too long, and there's too many ideas that worked for that. Some of Lynch's style in the movie didn't work for this story. It's got a hell of a cast, though. I think the new version is going to be better, though. This movie is 2 hours and 17 minutes. It did not need to be that long. It could have been 2 hours even, or an hour and 50. There's a lot of scenes that are just like padding. That they show a lot of flashbacks, and they show a lot of like hands and weird David Lynch imagery. There's a scene where there's a cat and a rat that can be milked. That could have been cut out. There's scenes with dialogue that could have been cut out. Like I said, for pacing reasons, shorten the movie. The film cost $40 to $42 million, and it only made 37, and that was in its overall gross in the U.S. And you know the story of Dune if you've read the book. I never read the book, so I just went into this blind. I saw it on HBO Max. Set in the distant future, the film chronicles the conflict between rival noble families as they battle for the control of an extremely harsh desert planet, Arrakis, also known as Dune. The planet is the only source of the drug melagene, also called the spice, yeah, where they snort it and they get fly and all that shit, which allows prescience and is vital to space travel, making it the most essential and valuable commodity in the universe. And also, water is scarce. And a lot of people wanted to develop this movie. The novel's initial success, they attempted to make Dune in 1971. A lengthy process of development followed throughout the 1970s, during which Arthur P. Jacobs, Alejandro Jodorowsky, which I want to see his documentary on how he was going to do Dune, and Ridley Scott unsuccessfully tried to bring their vision to the screen. In 1981, executive producer Dino De Laurentiis hired David Lynch to direct it. And yes, it's a very divisive movie. Even if you've read the books or not read the book, it's still very divisive. I know that. Josh, you don't have to, when you go on my comments, you don't have to say this is the worst movie of all time. It's a weak adaptation of the book. I get it. It's not the source material on the screen. The new one probably will be. But as a sci-fi movie on its own, there are things I like in it, and I'll get to that. I do like the visual style. I like that the film looks great for the 80s. There's a lot of good special effects and good practical locations, but we'll get to that. The film was a box office bomb. Did it deserve to? Yeah, it came right after Star Wars. This was a year after Return of the Jedi. It didn't stand a chance. And it was negatively panned by critics. So yeah, Josh, you're not the only one in this boat. A lot of people didn't like this movie, just like Space Jam 2. They heavily criticized the screenplay. Yeah, this movie has a lot of hammy acting in it, especially from some of the villains. Uh, Lack of faithfulness to the source material, pacing, direction, and editing. I know, again, Lynch had his hands tied. He was doing a studio film and they interfered. This is what happens. But they did praise the visual effects, musical score. The score is amazing. I love the score. The acting is really good mostly, but I'll get to the ones that can't. And the action sequences, yeah, when they're there, they're pretty fun. They're practical. There's no CGI in this movie. The new version's gonna have the giant worm that you saw in the trailer. That's the animal here. That's practical in this version. Looks great. The new one's a giant CGI monster, just like in that episode of Mandalorian last year. Uh, Lynch disowned the film. I know, Lynch, because it's not your full vision. What made it into the film, your weirdness, your eccentricities, made it into the film. And this guy is weird. All of his movies are weird. All of his films. Whether he directed it, wrote it, or produced it, or whatever. David Lynch is a weird dude. He was like the Taika Waititi of the 80s and the 90s, etc. I mean, just some people just overact in his movies, and it's just painful sometimes. But here it is, stating that the pressure from both the producers and the financiers restrained his artistic control and denied him final cut privilege. Same thing happened to David Ayer when he did the first Suicide Squad movie, or Superman 4 when that movie's budget was cut, or Superman 2 when Richard Donner couldn't finish it, or other movies that interfered, like what Kathleen Kennedy did with Solo and with freaking Rise of Skywalker and these other where they fired directors and Rogue One. Again, when studios get involved in a movie, what the hell are you expecting? But for the fact that this film was even finished, I give it some credit for that. It was at least finished. It's not a half a movie like Alien 3. It is a complete movie, even though you can tell there's a lot of stuff cut out because of how long the movie was. Um, yeah, he disowned it. But again, three versions have been released worldwide. Some cuts, Lynch is now replaced with the credits Alan Smithy. The extended and TV versions had additional credit writer Lynch as Judas Booth. The film has developed a cult following. I get why, because it's freaking weird and it's weirdly entertaining in some parts. It is. Falling over time, but opinion varies on the demands of fans of the novel and fans of Lynch's films. I'm not a big David Lynch fan. I didn't like Eraserhead when I saw that years ago. I'm like, it was too weird. It was slow and boring, and nothing happens. At least in this movie, something is happening. It feels more like a Ridley Scott movie than a David Lynch movie. It's the weirdness that he brings into the movie that's just a little bit too much for me. Comic Laughlin is good. I think Timothy Chalamet will be a great successor. Frances Annis as Lady Jessica, she's okay. She has her moments, just doesn't have a lot to do in it. Um, Leonardo Cimino as Baron's doctor, he's all right. Jose Ferreira as Pardisha, Emperor Shaddam. He's basically the Emperor from Star Wars, except without a hoodie, and he just commands stuff. That's about it. Linda Hunt is Shaddam Mapes, the Freeman housekeeper of the Atreides Arrakis Palace. You have Richard Jordan as Duncan. This guy gets the short end of the stick. He's like in two scenes in this movie. He barely does anything. Patrick Stewart's in this movie. This is before he did Star Trek, before X-Men, before Logan, before all that. It's good in the film for what he has to do. You have Jurgen Prochnow. He does decent as the Duke. Leto. You have but the worst actor in this movie, I'm not freaking kidding, and I know Josh will agree with me, is Sting. He is not an actor, guys. Half the time he's looking like this. I swear, he looks like a pedophile, like he's ready to sexually assault someone. And there's a scene with him in a thong. I didn't need to see that. I'm not gay. I'm not into British dudes all oiled up and have their Mr. Nimbus coming out. He looks like Mr. Nimbus in that episode of Rick and Morty. It's totally homophobic. It's homoerotic. There's two scenes like that. There's another scene where, and he's the worst actor in the movie because he's not an actor. Half of his lines are delivered like, "I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill you" at the end, and I'm like, it's too much. I'm like, Lynch, you should have never cast Sting. That was a mistake. He ain't no Benedict Cumberbatch. I'll tell you that much. Dean Stockwell, he's okay as the Doctor. Max von Sydow was good to see him not wasted in a movie like in Force Awakens. Uh, you had Virginia Madsen is the Princess Irulan, but she just narrates the movie and that's it. And she shows up at the end. She doesn't do anything. I did like Sean Smith. I mean, not Sean Smith. What's her name? Sean Young as Chani. I know Zendaya's the new Chani. She should do fine. And I don't want to compare the two because I haven't seen the new version yet, but I know she'll be a good Chani. She's Paul's lover. But literally, they meet and they fall in love in the same day. And Lynch didn't even have time to develop their romance. It's like, nope, you're a man, you're a woman, make it work. And I'm like, it is a little bit rushed. I do like them as a couple. There's a scene where there's a baby born, and it's the daughter of Paul. It's just very confusing. This movie can be very confusing, but it is entertaining at times. This guy that overacts, where's the Baron? Where's the Baron? Who's the actor that played the Baron? Oh my God, this Kenny McMillan. This guy is so over the top, it'll make you forget what happened with Pedro Pascal in Wonder Woman 84. You thought that was hammy? This guy has pimples on his face, and he is milking every scene he's in. There's a scene where he's touching this guy's face, and he's like, and squeeze, and squeeze, and squeeze. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, you're a cartoon. He's acting like an 80s cartoon villain. He flies in the air like the Violator in Spawn. He's disgusting. He has a stupid laugh. And I'm like, this is just too much. Please don't put this in the new version, guys. I don't need to see hammy acting in a Denis Villeneuve movie. His acting is usually more subtle. With Lynch, there is no subtlety. He says, like, fuck subtlety. I'm going to put my weirdness in every character that I can. The film is shot well. I do like the shots of the movie. I like the matte paintings and the practical sets and the locations are really cool. I do like the costumes. Some of them, some of the effects are good, and some of them are terrible. Like that alien with the asshole mouth. Eh, it looks okay. The spaceships look great. There's no CGI. But like I said, the film is very confusing. If you've never read the book and you've never seen a David Lynch movie, this movie is not a good way to start because it's weird. But there were scenes where they were overacting, and I was laughing my ass off. So there's some comedy I felt in the movie. I know some people are going to disagree. That's fine. Um, and it came out in December. That's not a good release for a movie like this. Usually, movies like this come out in the summer, but it didn't stand a chance. The Elephant Man I haven't seen either, but I'll see that eventually. It's probably just as weird. The special effects don't look that bad in hindsight. I mean, the new one, of course, is going to look amazing because it's a Denis Villeneuve movie, and he is not as weird as Lynch. Yeah, Roger Ebert gave it 1 out of 4 stars, saying this movie is a real mess. It is, but it's a fun kind of a mess for me. Incomprehensible, ugly. It's not that ugly. I've seen worse. Pointless exertion in the murkier realms of one of the most confusing screenplays of all time. But if you want to laugh at something for stupid for over 2 hours, it's a film to watch, at least with a bunch of friends to make fun of it. Yeah, the homophobic, yeah, it says that the most obscenely homophobic film I've ever seen, referring to a scene where the Baroness sexually assaults and kills a young man by bleeding him to death. That was not needed. That could have been cut out. And also the scene with Sting in a thong. I don't want to see that. There's some speeches Kyle McLaughlin does that's pretty good, except at the very end. The thing about God, the hand of God and the word of God. I'm like, this is a sci-fi movie, guys. Keep your religion out of it. Don't put it in a freaking movie like this. I don't know if that was in the book or not. It's not necessary. This is science fiction. Okay, you don't need that. It's pandering. Like I said, the hammy acting. It did get an Oscar for best sound, but the film also won a Stinker's Bad Award again. For better worst picture, it was not the worst picture of 1984. There have been way worse. And I get the cult following. It's like the Mario Brothers movie. It's not going to please everybody, especially fans of the game. I am a fan of the game, but I just let it go. Also, who did I forget to mention? Cian Phillips as the Reverend's mother. Yeah, she was okay. She's bald throughout most of the film. The little girl that plays the baby is okay. Alicia Witt. Is that the Alicia Witt I'm thinking of? Yeah, that is her. She was a little girl in this. That yeah, she was in the Hallmark movies, Josh. So just bear with me. Um, David Lynch did an uncredited cameo as a spice worker. Yeah, I did see him. Danny Corkle is shown in the on-screen credits as Orlop, despite his scenes being deleted from the theatrical cut. I saw the theatrical cut because that was the only one available on streaming, and I did have some fun with it. It is a very mixed bag. Good effects, good music, really good locations, good performance by Kyle MacLachlan. It does have some good action, but it's a mess because of studio interference. I don't blame Lynch. I don't blame freaking the writers. They were the ones that, well, actually, he is the writer. But even the producers or whatever, the producer Rafaela De Laurentiis, I blame the executive producers at what's the studio that releases Universal. Stop interfering in freaking art. If Lynch had done this movie without interference, it would have been way more coherent. It's like what DC did with the first Suicide Squad and BVS. They cut it into a cut that didn't work, and then they had to release a longer cut. Make your movie count the first time, guys. Stop making excuses like, oh, the studio interfered. Then do your own version. The Snyder Cut got released this year, is all I'm saying. It is a better cut of the movie, but it's still way too long. And this could have been shorter too. Cut out the unnecessary subplots. Cut out the weird David Lynchisms like having hands in front of your face and freaking weird imagery in space and all this trippy imagery. I'm like, that's what Lynch is all about. I still think Ridley Scott should have done it. He wouldn't have made it as trippy. If Watiti was around back in the 80s, he would have done it better. But we got a new version coming out in October. I'm very excited for it. I do like this premise of them going into a desert planet. Yeah, like Tatooine in Star Wars, but to find an element, spice. I get it. I get it. But it's not like they have lightsabers and the Force and all that. No. And like I said, it's a mixed bag for me. I don't love the film, Josh, but I don't hate it either. I didn't say this is the worst thing I've ever seen. No, after sitting through some terrible movies on Netflix this year and movies like Vanquish, this movie looks like Star Wars compared to Vanquish. But it does have its problems, a lot of it. That's goes without saying. But like I said, it's not even Lynch's worst film. I still think Eraserhead, while that was successful, it was too weird and I didn't understand it at all. This movie would have been at least highly regarded if it was faithful to the source material and was not studio interfered. I hate when studios do that. Their interference is what causes a lot of good movies that could have been amazing to turn into shit. Just ask Sam Raimi when the studio interfered and tried to force Venom into Spider-Man 3. That's what happened, guys. Don't blame Raimi for that. He wasn't in charge. Let the directors do their art. Movie studios and TV studios. Stop making stupid ass decisions. But it's Hollywood. What can you do? Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'm glad I'm back. I wanted to do another video on a movie. Like I said, it's highly flawed. It is. I admit that. But my sister and I watched it and we laughed our asses off with the overacting and some of the effects and some weird things that didn't make any sense. At least I got some joy out of it. Some. That's more than I can say for movies I saw this year, where I was just bored out of my mind. But anyway, it is what it is. It's a cult film for a reason. It's not going to be for everybody. Thanks for watching. Take care. And hopefully in October, I'll see the new 2021 version at home. And I'll get to you on that one. So thanks for watching, guys. Later.